Welcome to the McFeely Mess podcast at Inforum.com. In-depth conversations and opinion covering a variety of topics from the world of news, sports, and more. Here's Mike McFeely.
Welcome to another episode of the McFeely Mess podcast at Inforum.com, and we have a very special guest. Remember back in the 1980s when we would hear television programs say, it's a very special edition. This is a very special edition of the McFeely Mess podcast because one, Dom Izzo is with us to chat about what appears to be a failed attempt at garnering 5,000 people for both Bison basketball games this upcoming weekend on February 24th. Hello, Dom Izzo. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here. I haven't been over in the forum in forever. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a buzz about the place. It's a little different
from last time I was here. Holy cow. The last pod we shared together, do you remember?
No.
You probably won't. We were in Frisco. The first night we were there, 2022.
Oh, okay.
And then we did another one flying back.
On the flight back. One of the most popular editions ever, by the way. It was like people went nuts for the podcast at 25,000 feet. Yeah,
yes.
It was just, so
it's great to be back, Michael. I appreciate it. And unfortunately, we're not trendsetters like climbing Mount Everest or breaking the 4-minute mile of getting 5,000 people here to what I thought would be a pretty intriguing game. It just, the buzz is not there for it.
Well, and when we did this, and I, totally forced you to do this with me, but I thought that we could at least generate some buzz by talking about it on your television program, by me writing about it at Inforum and printing stories about it in the actual print forum, talking about it on Twitter, places like that. I thought that we could at least get a little buzz going and see a little impact on people going, oh, wait a second, maybe I do want to go to a basketball game. But since we started this, trying to get 5,000 for the men's basketball game versus North Dakota on Saturday and then the women's game following it, my numbers as of yesterday, Tuesday, are about 2,200, did I say?
For the 26.
2,600 for the men and about 1,200 for the women. That's tickets out. That's not, there's still time. And there'll still be a walk-up.
There'll be a walk-up, but not 2,200.
Not 2,200 and not 3,800 for the women. So, okay, that's our mea culpa, that we're not going to get this done, okay, which is fine. Why? What is... This is not a new problem because every college around the country, for the most part, is facing attendance issues. Our friend down in Springfield, Missouri, Wyatt Wheeler, just did a 3-part series on why can't Missouri State get anybody to their basketball game.
Heck, look at Williams Arena and University of Minnesota's battling this, Mike.
Half full at best on most nights. So what is it? It's not just one thing, I don't believe, but what is it?
I'm just looking through the various emails I got since we launched this publicly about three and a half weeks ago. Everything rallying from, the games are on TV, which they've been on TV for 10 years, that the seats are uncomfortable. The seats haven't changed since the building opened in November of 2016.
Correct.
To the tickets are expensive. I will agree with that. I think it is probably too expensive to go to a game. We thought alcohol sales would help. That hasn't dented anything.
Nope.
I don't. In the 3 years now that they've done that.
The attendance is going the opposite direction.
Yes.
And I have the numbers that I shared with you that actually for just Summit League games, the men's attendance through the first 6 home games that they've had it's like 1,200 people, which is the lowest ever in years.
Schedule doesn't help either. I mean, you and I were at whatever Oak Hills Christian College was, and that is a debacle. You get Valley City State on. I mean, that's not gonna pack anybody in. But it's the same like we've done this ad nauseum for football for the better part of 5 years now of why people aren't going to the Fargo Dome. Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. But it starts at NDSU's part. I mean, there's no energy, commercials, any sort of come on out outside of free hats or free shirts. That'll get the students there.
That will get students there, and that's a positive. Yep.
But it's not going to get, if I wasn't covering it, am I going to go to the game? I don't know if that's enough for me to go and plump whatever it is, $20, $25 to go sit and watch a game, especially when the schedule consists of those teams I just mentioned. San Jose State was awesome, and there was a connection there because Tim Miles was the coach.
And that was a decent crowd, I think.
It was. And on Monday night. It
wasn't great. It was a decent Monday night crowd.
But Portland was a pretty good opponent. Nobody really came to that game on a Thursday. I think there's a myriad of reasons, but it has to start on the athletic department level of actually getting excited or invested in basketball, in my mind.
Yeah, and I get around town a little bit. Again, whether it's bowling on Monday nights that you and I like to joke about on your program on Tuesdays when I have my regular appearance, whether it's the grocery store, whether it's the golf course in the summertime. And when it comes to football and basketball, the two most recognizable spectator sports, there just isn't any buzz.
No.
There's just no excitement about those sports anymore around the community, I don't think. And it's easier said than done. But at some point, if you're North Dakota State, and I think this is what you're saying, is you have to sell yourself a little bit. You have to engage with the community. And there are just some people who are not going to go to games. I got an email right before you came into the building today from somebody who says they used to be NDSU grad, used to have basketball and football season tickets, then had kids, and now is a hockey dad in West Fargo. And this person said, look, I dropped my season tickets for NDSU years ago when we had kids. But he goes, I don't know that I'm ever going to go back because I like going to Force games now. I'm a hockey guy.
Okay.
My 10-year-old son would rather go to a Force game and play the stuff they have going on there because it's just more fun and more and he's a hockey guy.
And it is. I've been to a handful of Force games, and they engage with the crowd in a way that does not happen. That email, I got it, you got it. The athletic department was also attached.
Correct.
On that email.
And this is a different email, but you're talking about that it's a Bison fan spent a lot of time writing about a 5,000-word email saying, here's what you could consider changing to make the games more attractive. That's what you're referring to. Everything,
Mike, was spot on. I'm looking at it right now. The email that was sent from music selection, I thought was dead on. To replays, if there's anything that the Dome does really well, especially on a play that could be targeting, it could be out of bounds, they put the replays up there on the screen. We never have that. We have some lengthy basketball reviews that just suck the energy heck out of a broadcast that I know I'm doing. I can't imagine if you're sitting there in the crowd. I know sometimes you'll text me like, "What are they looking at?"
Yes.
There's no explanation to the fans sitting there about what is going on. They've got those replay monitors. Hook them up to the broadcast to say what's going on. That alone would engage the fan, I think.
And just keep people informed and engaged with what's going on, as opposed to when it's the last few minutes of the game or the half and you have timeouts, which that's part of the game.
Yep.
That's TV's fault in some cases.
I knew that would come up somehow.
But you can't have it both ways. If you're if you're NDSU or if you're a fan, you can't have it both ways and complain about the TV coverage.
Nope.
Because you're getting money, first of all, from the broadcast partners that do the games, and so you can't go, well, the games have to move along. Well, you know what? If you want a product on the court, you need the money.
And they're 1 minute TV timeouts, by the way. It's not like it's Big Monday on ESPN where they're 2.5 to 3 minute timeouts.
Right. So it's I don't know. After engaging in this little miniature experiment, I don't know that I have any concrete ideas where I could say, this is what's going to turn things around and get people to the games.
How about moving the student section?
But you could help. But you have to, I think, as an athletic department, at least have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's happened. From the people I've talked to at NDSU, who would know. I don't know that those discussions are happening where you're sitting around a table saying, okay, our attendance sucks. What can we do? Or like, if I'm the boss,
like a table
looking across the table and going, it's your job.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Right. How are we addressing this?
How are we addressing this? Because it's a thing.
Part of the fun I have, we have just an unbelievable video library, much like you have archives here at the Forum, that I went back. My first real big Bison basketball game I covered, Mike, was December of 2006 when Bob Huggins and Kansas State were coming. Yep. And granted, I know Kansas State and the likes of the Power Five aren't making road trips in men's basketball, but it was fantastic. And for majority of the next 3 years, 07, 08, 09, that legendary team, Saturday nights and Thursday nights inside the BSA were to the rafters. So I'm going back and looking at some old games when Oakland came and Oral Roberts came. Heck, even Centenary and Fort Wayne would come, and it was packed at the BSA.
Now, was that because it was Division I?
The newness of it?
It was new.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure some of it.
That it was, people were excited. They knew that Woodside, Winkleman, they knew those guys were good, and they were coming up, and it was exciting to be out of the NCC, and they were blazing their own trail.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was part of that, but also the coaches that they would face, a Greg Campy, a Ron Hunter, a Scott Sutton, would embrace the students being right there, including Huggins when Kansas State was here. Those crowds were there at the early part of the Shack. You laid out the numbers for me when it first opened. So they have come to that building, but I don't know if we blame COVID for a lot of things. I don't know if you want to lump that in there too. That is a way for people to stay away.
There was certainly a demarcation point where that's where it really dropped off. But I don't. But most people are over that now.
If you're going to go, you're going to go.
If you're going to go, you're going to go. Yeah. Unless it's like the football deal where it gave people an excuse to not go to the games, and they went, well, you know what? I don't really miss it that much.
And I can watch it on TV.
I can watch it on TV, or I can just do something else.
I've got 9 hours of my Saturday freed up. I found out that I can do other things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I just... If I'm expecting at some point that somebody at North Dakota State is going to look at you or I and go, okay, geniuses, so what are your big ideas?
I've already got a couple of those already.
Right, and that's fair.
Yeah,
if I'm going to throw this out there and criticize, that's fine.
I would submit the first two things I said is, are you displacing season ticket holders by moving where the students are now?
Yeah.
And if you are, then that might be the price to bear on that. I don't know, because they feel so far removed from the game.
First of all, I don't know that the students are that engaged with basketball anyway.
True.
But secondly,
certainly not like they used to be.
But secondly, to your point, if you're not selling out the place, what difference does it make
if you're
where the students sit, because you're not selling the tickets anyway. Right? Yep. And so get them in a place where they can affect the game or be part of the game.
And can be seen on TV as well. You know what I mean? From that top camera, they can, oh, wow, well, there's people there. Maybe I want to be part of that and go to the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we can discount the power of the visual medium on that. Well, it looks like there's people there. Maybe I should get over there and go.
Want to be a part of that. And that's what, this is a football-related comment, but Tim Polasek, at his introductory press conference, or maybe it was the coaches, when he was introducing the new coaches press conference, he brought up the idea of that he needs to get out into the community and shake some hands and kiss some babies. And that was clearly a mandate from Matt Larson, the athletic director, who hired Tim Polasek, to have the new head coach do that. Because Matt Larson, when he was talking to Jeff Kolpak about a story Jeff wrote about Polasek's new contract, Matt Larson said, our football coach has to be out in the community engaging our fans. And so it was clear, that was clearly directed.
Clear as crystal. Yes.
Clearly directed at the previous head coach, who didn't want to do that stuff and never did.
Nope.
But that's something, when I look at it, I say, okay, I like Dave Richmond. I like Matt Entz. Matt Entz got a bad rap around these parts for many reasons. I thought Matt Entz was a good guy.
Yes.
He's a good human being.
Yes.
Right? And he had more success than people give him credit for, and that will all come out in the wash. And time will be kind to Matt Entz.
Yep.
But Craig Bohl was a guy in football who was out there everywhere because he knew he had to be. And he also got some incentive for selling tickets, but that's maybe that needs to be part of the deal.
Yeah, maybe.
Again. But he knew he had to sell, so he was out selling. They got away from it when it came to Chris Kleiman. He didn't want to do that. Didn't have to do it because he won every game that he coached, so it didn't matter.
No.
Matt Entz just wanted to be a football coach. Didn't want to be the glad-hander. Didn't work so well for him because you could see the empty seats.
And they lost a handful of games, too.
Yes, they did. They actually lost 3 games in a year, 4 games in a year, which is unacceptable around here. But Tim Miles was a salesman extraordinaire. Tim Miles was selling at the game he was coaching in Fargo.
Yep.
He was glad-handing all the old Bison supporters that he knew, walking around the floor of the arena, shaking hands and hugging Bison fans.
Bison supporters. He went to the Green and Gold Collective the night before to talk about how much NIL is necessary.
But more important than that, he was at the game the next day, shaking hands and saying hello to fans, and fans were responding to that, hugging him. Tim, so great to see you.
Welcome back.
My wife and I walked past one of those interactions going to get a hot dog or popcorn, and my wife is like, "Oh my God, is this like, old home week?" I said, "It absolutely is, yes." Saul Phillips was a guy who loved to engage, loved to shake hands, kiss babies, talk to anybody.
Yeah, never a conversation he didn't like. Yeah.
No, they loved to talk. They loved it for various reasons. That's their personality. Dave Richmond, like Matt Entz, is not like that. He does not seem to enjoy it. Dave Richmond's a good man. I like Dave a lot. He's a hell of a basketball coach. Whether his style is exciting enough to draw fans in, that's maybe a conversation we have to have as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But in terms of selling the program, I don't believe, and I've said this to his face, so I'm not speaking out of turn, just like I said it to Matt Entz's face, not speaking out of turn, he doesn't do enough to sell the program himself.
Yep.
I mean, I literally looked at Matt Entz face to face and said, "What are you doing to sell the program?"
And that's part of it. That's part of the deal. Being a Division I basketball or football coach nowadays. It has to be,
especially when you're not drawing
when
people.
You're not getting people to come.
If you are selling out the joint, then by all means,
go for it. Coach the team.
Right.
Yep. But you got to be out there to do that. And I'll go. I mean, Bison basketball, I always shake my head at this. The highest rated game that anything NDSU athletics has had was Bison men's basketball against Duke on CBS.
Yes.
That was the biggest. It was the men's basketball in the NCAA tournament. You can say what you want about FCS football, but they play in the greatest tournament, in the biggest spectacle we have, not named the Super Bowl. They have every year they have a chance to get into that, and that draws in people that never watch basketball. So the fact that they can't capitalize on that mystifies me. The second part of it too, and this is part of Dave's, and we've done this before, and I've talked to him. His coaching philosophy is, it's a process until March. 3 games matter. 3 games in Sioux Falls is all that matters for the season. So if you're going out saying that, then why am I going to come to the game in December or January if you're telling me it doesn't matter because it's all a process till March?
Right.
That's a hard sell.
It's a hard sell, and you can't argue with the results.
No, they've been in the Summer League title game 5 years in a row.
Let me make that clear.
Yeah.
Dave Richmond knows how to win basketball games. He knows how to coach basketball. That hasn't changed. But you're right. When you say we're a process-driven program,
oriented team,
not a results-driven program, well, how do you sell that to the public? How do you go to the Kiwanis Club if you went there and said, "Come out and watch us, and you can see our process"? Well, that doesn't sell a ticket.
You're not going to put that on a poster.
No. And that just doesn't work. And so, even if that's what you are, you have to come up with a better. The games matter. If I'm paying $20, the games matter.
They have to matter. Yes.
I'm not going there to twiddle my thumbs. I'm going there to see a victory.
We had the same conversation. I don't mean to derail this, but we had the same conversation this time last year when they had a bona fide NBA draft prospect, a superstar in the Summit League, and weren't marketing towards Grant Nelson.
Right.
okay, if you want anything, just come see him. He's a North Dakota guy from Devil's Lake, who the NBA is now on. He's on their radar. Go see him. And they fumbled that away how many times from January to the end of the regular season when Grant really started to blow up.
Yeah, and that's we've discussed Dave Richmond, we've discussed Matt Entz. Part of it has to start, maybe most of it has to start at the very top, though.
Yep.
Right? I mean, Gene Taylor was beloved as an athletic director among the coaches, among the staff, among people at the university. Gene Taylor was beloved because he was the guy who would be sitting in your hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning drinking a scotch after you won the Summit League tournament, and he was there and had your back all the time. And the coaches multiple times have told me you always knew Gene had your back. We love him, yada, yada, yada. That's not to say Matt Larson, I don't know if Matt Larson has their back or not, but if he is the boss, then it has to come back to him eventually because he's in charge of the department.
Right.
And so if you're talking about a marketing strategy or, what are you doing in the community, it has to go back to Matt.
Correct. Everything has to stop there.
Right.
Yes.
And so, what is the boss doing to sell the basketball program? Anything? I mean, is he?
It's a good question. I don't.
I don't know.
I don't have the answer on that either.
And there's a marketing department there, and those people are they're the worker bees. I don't mean to leap on them.
No, but they're being told what to go and market, basically, right?
I mean, so what are you marketing?
Yep.
What are you doing? and that one thing I have noticed, and I've written about this before, is I think the athletic department in North Dakota State in the last 10 years has become more insular. It's become just its own little entity that doesn't seem to have a lot of outreach to the community.
An island, you'd say.
An island. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that.
They just don't seem to want to engage the community.
Goes back to what we're talking about at the top, about engagement. That's what it comes down to, of trying to get butts in the seats.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not there.
You have to try. You have to attempt. You have to say, what can I do? Do we have to give away some tickets? And
just get people in the seats,
and
right?
if you don't want to give away tickets because that devalues the tickets, or it's going to tick off your season ticket holders. In women's basketball, there's about 25 season ticket holders or something. I mean, so what?
Right.
Who are you making mad?
Right, who are you pissing off on that? Right.
So then make it a 2-for-1, or a dad buys one and 2 kids get one for free, or something. There's a missing piece there where they're just not drawing new people into their buildings
or younger people.
Right.
That. You go to every men's game, you see the same people that have gone for the last 15, 20 years, used to see at the BSA that go there. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I wish I had more concrete answers to provide, and because the product is good. I mean, especially on the women's side, I've fully been behind that, and there's been a stretch, and they were in the worst spot for 10 to 12 years where their fans were apathetic to boys and women's basketball. And that you don't want to be there. And
correct.
Now it's going to take a bit.
Yes.
Maybe a run to the Summit League tournament to really get people to say, okay, let's go watch the women's team. But the men have always been good. That's the part I struggle with.
So let's talk about that, because is it that they have no chance to win a national championship?
I've heard that.
You're playing to get to a tournament where you're likely going to lose by 25 points in the first game of the tournament. Yeah. And is that why football was so popular for so long? Because no matter what level it was at, whether it was Division II or FCS, you have a chance to hoist the trophy at the end of the year.
I guess, but how much success did the men have in the Division II level? That's before my time. I mean, they're sporadic. Obviously, the women reached the very top of it. But again, I would trade that everybody knows what March Madness is. And I will go back to the victory over Oklahoma, the near victory over Kansas, as two of the pinnacle Division I moments that NDSU has had since they moved up.
And people have gone to the Shack before, as we started this conversation with. They have average 3,500. So it's maybe it's not that there's no championship carrot out there.
I don't think so. I've heard everything from TV to the seats to alcohol to the location of the arena, which I don't think they're ever going to. It's on the north side of Fargo. That's not going anywhere. I've heard a litany of things. Same thing I heard with football. Don't roll your eyes at me. Wi-Fi's a thing too. That's a brand new building. I can't believe that's not in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Fargo Dome has its own reason. It's a 31-year-old building. The Shack was open in 2016. How that was not included is befuddling to me. Those are all part of. You got to have some engagement to get people in the seats, and there's not there. It's a disconnect there.
Now, Dave Richmond is going to love me asking you this question. Would Dave Richmond's style is we are going to play defense and we are going to drain the shot clock.
We're going to grind you.
We're going to grind you. Does that lend itself to people saying, I don't want to watch that? And if all that matters is the 3 games in Sioux Falls, and it really doesn't matter how you get there, then
they want to open it up a little bit.
Would you be better off just opening it up a little bit and saying we're going to be entertaining, even if we lose a couple more games? But I, as the head coach, are saying we're a process-oriented team, so it doesn't matter.
We're getting better towards February, March.
And so if you're losing a 95-94 game, is that better than winning a 68-67 game?
I have definitely had that said to me, and you have said that to me as well.
Yes. And I have publicly tweeted.
Right. It's tough to watch some of those games.
I have told Dave that to his face as well.
That it's tough to watch some of their games. There's no doubt about that, and that makes for a difficult watch and a difficult way to get people to come to the games. There's no doubt about that, and that's. He's not going to change his style.
Nope.
We know that.
No, Dave's not going to change. Dave's not going to change.
And I mean, you could say, well, they don't have enough North Dakota guys. They had their best player was a double play kid.
They have enough North Dakota.
But you know what I mean? I've heard various reasons.
And people turned out for the 2014 team with Lawrence Alexander. They weren't from North Dakota.
Taylor
either.
Braun was from Oregon.
Right. They weren't. They had a Lucas Mormon.
Yep.
They had a Grant Nelson. Now they have a Bowden Skunberg. Yep. They have enough kids from North Dakota. If you have 1 or 2, that's what you're going to get. You can't have 7 kids from North Dakota, or you're not going to win any games.
No. How much of it, and I know I got to roll here, so I apologize, but you and I have talked about this, when fans look at the schedule, and goes back to our topic of competition. Mike, this is the old NCC. They're playing UND. They're playing South Dakota. They're playing South Dakota State. They're playing Omaha. How different is this than it was 25 years ago? And those are the same opponents
I think that's part of it, too, is it kind of feels like Back to the Future. But, I mean UND is a rival, and South Dakota State is the biggest rival.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I buy that either. And NSU's not going anyplace either.
Not in that.
I mean, I have been the guy that wants them to go FBS. You want them to as well. It'd be great if the basketball teams were in the Mountain West. That'd be great. I mean, they're not anywhere near prepared for that.
You see the teams in the Mountain West are really good.
Right, but, so, I mean, they are where they are for now. That's not going to change. So you have to make do with what you have right now. And if things change, they change. But you can't.
No.
I mean, it's UND, which no matter what you think of UND, and no matter what you think of the rivalry as it stands, it's a team that's 70 miles away that it's your rival.
And I listed off when we were doing Bison Media Zone today, like the top 5 players in the league over the last 10 years. All those guys got professional opportunities, are still playing. One's playing starting in the NBA right now. So you get high-level opponents that come in on a regular basis. There's nothing to replace those early days with IUPUI, Oakland, and Oral Roberts. That was recognizable. Coaches, and you had...
And did not like...
No.
Greg Campy was the biggest...
He hated coming to Fargo.
And they let him know it, and he played it up, and it was fun.
You had George Hill. You had Keith Benson. You had... Dominique Morrison from Oral Roberts. You had absolute studs that came here like, all right, this is a huge game. This guy, Reggie Hamilton, #1 scorer in the country. Parallel, the Summit League still has the #1 scorer in the country, and Tommy Bruner of Denver. It just, I don't get it. And there needs to be a kind of meeting like we're having set this summer to say, what are we doing with attendance? Because it's going the wrong way. And it ain't going to get any better if it just keep forgive me, rolling the basketball out and keep doing this again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It was awesome, bud. Thanks for the invite.
Dom Izzo, WDAY-TV. You can see his program Hot Mic every weekday morning, 9 to 11 on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. This has been the McFeely Mess Podcast. Thank you. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the McFeely Mess Podcast at Inforum.com. For more podcasts and columns, head to Inforum.com and search Mike McFeely